against the top in the back, and then it stays there, and then that heals.
No
But
kidding.
if that bubble goes other places, you have to do the whole thing over again.
No kidding.
All right, it's time to go back to work, otherwise
Wow.
we'll never get out of here. Okay, next on our agenda is Brian Reynolds. And I'm guessing it's Brian and Rose. So they are here to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached Berry County remonumentation plan as required under MCL 54, 261 through 54, 279.
So moved.
Moved by Jackson,
Support.
support by Gibson. Floor is yours.
Well, the plan itself runs for 20-some pages and makes excellent bedtime reading. Probably the most interesting page of them all is the very last one there, which shows the status of the individual townships, where we are at this point in terms of getting the program, the initial phase of the program completed. Countywide, we are at 73.7% of completion. However, in Assyria Township, we have 6 corners unfinished as of the beginning of this year, and we expect to get all 6 of those done this year, and so Assyria will be the first of the townships that we complete. Then I would say that probably next year we will finish Irving Township, and then shortly thereafter, possibly the year after that, we will finish Maple Grove, and hopefully we can, finish up a township a year for the next 16 years. And have the doggone thing done. The initial plan, which was adopted back in 1992, the initial plan was woefully out of date. And the change in the law back in 2013 recognized that the plans were out of date and mandated that a new plan be drafted, and the inventory of the corners is a mandatory part of the new plan. And so what every county is going to be reporting where they stand in regards to completing the program, and I can say that the next biennial report to the legislature, which you also got a copy of, will have real numbers for statewide. Each county will be reporting real numbers rather than estimated numbers. The report to the legislature, and this is the most recent one, which is from September of 2019. According to this report, we're at 107%. In other words, we're beyond completion. Well, the numbers that they use in terms of the numbers of corners in the program is a fictitious number. It's an estimate. The number of corners completed is a way fictitious number because they're counting every recording under the program as a separate corner completed, which is not at all the case. There are a number of corners that have been recorded twice or 3 times as circumstances would require. And so when this report to the legislature, it's a mandatory part of the program on behalf of on part of the people who administer this program in Lansing. They issue this statewide report every 2 years. The next one that comes out will have real numbers statewide. And so, this will give you kind of a feel for where Berry County is in relation to other counties in terms of progress, in terms of cost, and so on. It's not that these numbers are completely worthless, it's just that they're almost worthless.
Government at its finest.
Yes. Okay. Any questions about the plan?
Any questions about the fictitious numbers?
Any
I see our
questions?
percentage is a lot higher in some of the other counties for being completed.
Yes. I think when you compare where Berry County is in relation to other counties, you know, in terms of cost per corner, in terms of, you know, how much we're done, you know, I think we're doing much better than average. If you look at the cost per corner, you'll see a trend there where the urban counties have a much higher cost per corner. The more rural a county is, the lower the cost per corner. And the reason for that is, you know, the more urban, the more development, the more likely that corner is going to be in a road. And anytime you have to work in a road, you have to have traffic control. You have, you know, the excavation is generally with machinery rather than with a shovel and so on. So urban counties are going to be more expensive than the rural counties.
God forbid that the marker's under a house.
We've got one of those.
Not many probably though, just, I mean, because you think when this county was settled, it was primarily agriculture and people built their fence rows on section lines and stuff so that they avoided those problems. So,
Correct.
We've got one corner we won't ever get because it's under a house now.
as long as we can get close. Any other questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached Berry County remonumentation plan as required under MCL 54-261 through 54-279. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The item is approved. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Robert Carr, Michael Pratt, Cam Lear, Stephen Korber, Randall Yonker, Cindy Coster to the Berry County Remonumentation Peer Review Board and to authorize the chairperson to sign the attached peer review agreements for state reimbursements.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Jackson, support by Gibson. The floor is yours.
So these are our surveyors. We are in the first year of a 5-year contract cycle. So we went through the qualifications-based selection. We solicit from our surveyors and we post it to the county website, request for proposals. And the surveyors then are to return to us a resume, a fee schedule, proof of insurance, et cetera, to fulfill the contract requirements. We had 6 applicants. We were planning on staying with 6 positions. They all had complete packets, so they were accepted. This is a personnel change for 2 people. The corporations are the same. Cam Lear is replacing Ken Viersen, and Cindy Coster is replacing Jack Behe within the same companies.
Any questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Robert Carr, Michael Pratt, Cam Lear, Stephen Kerber, Randall Yonker, Cindy Coster to the Berry County Remonumentation Peer Review Board and to authorize the chairperson to sign the attached peer review agreements for the state reimbursements. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. And one more for this pair. The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached remonumentation surveyor agreements between the County of Berry and Brian Reynolds, DBA, Reynolds Land Surveying and Mapping, PC, Arrow Land Survey, Pathfinder Engineering, Inc., Crane Land Survey, Carr and Associates, LLC, Excel Engineering, and Yonker Land Surveys, PC for the 2020 contract year.
Support.
Second.
So moved.
All righty, we're all on board with this one. So we'll go Jackson, supported by Smelker. Here we go. Any questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached remonumentation surveyor agreements between the County of Berry, Brian Reynolds, DBA Reynolds Land Surveying and Mapping PC, Aero Land Survey, Pathfinder Engineering, Inc., Crane Land Survey, Carr and Associates, LLC, Excel Engineering, Yonker Land Surveys, PC for the 2020 contract year. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. It seems like we just read those.
Every year?
It
Every
just
year.
seems, thanks for coming. It's good to see you
Thank you.
Are you back?
for the day.
Just for the day.
Alrighty, next before us is Mr. Brown. The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached MERS 457 participation agreement amendment to permit Roth deferral contributions.
So moved.
Moved by Gibson, second by Parker. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is a pretty basic, I think, or simple amendment to our agreement. Currently, we allow employees to participate in the IRS deferred compensation program, which is for public entities and governments, 457, Section 457 of the IRS. Similar to 401s in the school system, it's a 403B. So when we talk about the 457 deferred compensation plan, it's referring to the section of the IRS code with which it's found, and 450, that section is what applies to counties and municipalities. We allow currently employees to defer their own monies. These are not employer dollars, these are employee dollars. Up to the annual cap, maximum amount. Last I looked, it was 17 or 18,000, but it gets adjusted every year. Under our current program, those are pre-tax dollars. The benefit of that is that you don't pay taxes on it, so the amount you have to invest is more than if they were post-tax. There is an option out there for all of the deferred compensation 401 style systems, and that's a Roth IRA. That allows you to defer it post-tax, and you pay the taxes on it up front. The benefit in the long run is that it grows tax-free, and you don't you've paid the taxes, so it grows, and when you defer it, it's tax-free. So we've been asked to add to our current 457 offering a Roth offering as well, and we're bringing this before you. We don't see any reason that we wouldn't. When we initially adopted it, we just you know what, I think I was going to say we didn't notice it, but I think that it wasn't offered at that time. Thank you. It wasn't offered at the time it came in after we began our 457 offering through MERS.
Any questions?
Michael, do you know how many people currently take advantage of the 457?
I do not, right off the top of my head. Pam, I'm going to, and I apologize because I doubt that you have it, comes out of, Karen handles that. We can find that out. I'll find that out and report. I do not know a number.
And the Roth is just an extension of what we already have then?
It
an
is.
enhancement?
That's correct. It just allows somebody to decide. It's my understanding that the limits are the same and it's not double. So if you're going to participate in deferred compensation, you still are subject to the maximum limits, but you can choose to either do a Roth and it really becomes a financial planning decision at the end. Some people feel that they may have a lot of taxable retirement income that they're dealing with at some point, and this gives them an opportunity to put some money away that will not be taxed when they retire.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached MERS 457 Participation Agreement Amendment to permit Roth deferral contributions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Item is approved. The next question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached amended Berry County Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, Public Summary of Procedures and Guidelines. FOIA Procedures and Guidelines and Freedom of Information Act request detailed cost itemization form and approval of the attached Berry County statutory fee costs form.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Jackson. Mr. Brown?
I will do my best, and I am the named FOIA officer for the county, but I have to acknowledge that I'm not the expert in this by any stretch. Luella is, so credit needs to be given where it's due, and in this case, Luella's the expert that put all this together. You have 4 separate documents, not including the agenda request form. The change does 2 things and then adds a new form. It's to the first 3 forms, it really does the changes the same 2, as I understand it, bullets, if you may. One is it includes that the individual or agent's complete name, address, and contact information must be included in a FOIA. It sounds pretty straightforward, but the law did change to clarify that, and so that we're not hamstrung trying to with incomplete information to respond to. I can't say we get many of those, but if any, but it does make it so that you're not subject to then penalties and whatnot later on if you weren't able to get in contact with that individual or company.
Do you think that that's in response to whoever it was that FOIA'd election results and didn't give complete information to like all the townships a few years ago?
It might be. It might be. I can't say that I followed the legislation of it, if you made the politics of it closely enough to determine why the changes were made.
I just remember there being a big issue after that election 4 years ago, and somebody had FOIA'd all of the election results but didn't give complete information.
No.
So
we've been fortunate, I believe. And we do our best to try to track if we get somebody that makes a request, we don't understand it. We try not to lean on technicalities, if you may, but figure out what it is that the individual wants, so that we can get it to them as expeditiously. It benefits us as well by in communicating so that it narrows down. We know what they want, and we're not searching through, for lack of a better term, voluminous records, using up our valuable time as well as their valuable time if what they're looking for they want is in as expeditious a manner as possible. The other change is that it adds a deposit, if a deposit is requested, is not received within 48 days, and an appeal of the fee has not been filed, that the request is deemed abandoned and not fulfilled. So there is a process that we go through, and this is as a result of some court actions, I believe, that they've tried to more clarify, I don't want to say tighten up, but more clearly define the expectations and the rules. And then lastly, it adds a form. Did I catch all of them? Seems like I missed one other. No. Those are the 2 changes. And then lastly, it adds a form that it's called a Freedom of Information Act request statutory fees cost. So if something is denied because it falls under another statute, abstract records, enhanced records through our IT, those are not subject to FOIA because they're enhanced. The legislature has recognized that and can be charged and under a different fee structure. It just says if we're going to deny them their FOIA because they fall under some other statutory fee structure, that we will provide notice of that, as well as the cost should they should it be run under that, which makes some sense. I would like to think, again, Luella manages these. It's quite a detailed process now, logging them and making sure that the requirements are met. I think we've been pretty good in the past about doing that if somebody is going to get denied, saying, well, but here's how you go about it. This just adds a form to our process that will automatically go to that individual or agency.
Any questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached amended Berry County Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, Public Summary of Procedures and Guidelines, FOIA Procedures and Guidelines, and the Freedom of Information Act Requested Detailed Cost Itemization Form, and approval of the attached Berry County Statutory Fee Cost Form. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved.
Madam Chair, just a minute. Luella, do you happen to recall how many FOIAs we dealt with last year on average? Rough estimate?
It's been increasing every year, but I think that we logged over 690 last year.
690.
I'm not sure that.
This would include records that are requested through the sheriff's department, all of the police reports.
We don't respond to those individually, all of those ourselves. There are a number of agencies, but the process, the detail that goes into it is that we're supposed to log and required to log and keep an accounting of each and every FOIA that comes through the county. So if we get it on behalf of an agency, it gets logged and sent to that appropriate agency. Luella then shepherds it through the process to make sure that all the forms are correct and whatnot, and it gets taken care of in the appropriate time. Likewise, if an agency gets one, they send it to us to log and put the materials together. So, yeah, there's, I'm not sure many would have thought that we're 700 FOIAs every year that are dealt with, and Luella manages those. So I'm grateful for her expertise in doing it, and I found it interesting when I was looking at the file one day and noticed the numbers, and so.
Thank you, sir. Next before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached schematic design for the Berry County Courts and Law Building renovations as prepared by Landmark Design Group, and to authorize Timothy A. Spitzley Architects, LLC, to proceed with the construction, drawing, bidding, and contract administration phases of the project as outlined in the attached proposal dated February 5th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Gibson, support by Parker. Mr. Brown?
Sure. I think everybody's familiar and aware that we've been working on moving friend of the court, and Inez is still here, so Inez, if I say something out of turn or if you have a question for her, please feel free to speak up or ask. But moving the friend of the court from its current location in the friend of the court building into the Courts and Law building, and we worked through, and Luella, if you want to move to the schematic. So in your packet are again, the agenda request form. There's a proposed agreement we will, if it meets with the board's approval, we'll turn that into a formal Architect Institutes of America. That's the formal document contract that we would use. And then the final pages are schematics of the building. We have been working with, and we would include Inez Straub of the trial court, and then John Smelker and Vivian Connor as commissioners, with Bob Van Putten out of Landmark to put together a schematic. And the biggest issue or hurdle we had was, could we in fact fit all of the staff that are in the Friend of the Court currently into the space that exists in the first floor that MSU Extension previously occupied. When we started down that path, Inez brought up the idea of using what we've called hush panel furnishings. And what does Hayworth call it? It's not modular. Panels, office systems. So moving away from drywall, stick built offices, moving to an open floor plan and using a modular or a panel type office system. And we're now at a point, we've worked with Hayworth that that can be done, that we have a design that moves Friend of the Court into the first floor. Currently, MIDC, our Public Defender's Office, is occupying part of that space. They would go to the lower level, as well as construct a couple of conference spaces down there. And then we would like in the first floor that you're looking at right now, on the right is the space that Friend of the Court would occupy. Two conference rooms to the north of the drawing, as well as the security entrance, will get enhancements. The current kitchen that's a part of the community room or former community room will be turned into an office that will be occupied by the SOS agent for in adult probation. And then on the south, there will be some enhancements to adult probation to expand or their waiting room a little bit. Currently, it goes all the way across. Some of the lobby space will be opened up so that they have a little bit more lobby and better utilizes their customer service window. Of course, as we go through all of these, one of the enhancements that we look to is when that building was built, none of the security or the customer service windows had any security glass at all. That's still one that does not, and that will be incorporated into it. You want to skip to the next? I think that takes us to the, well, this is a quick rendering, if you may, of what the Friend of the Court space will look like from above. If you were to rotate that 90 degrees clockwise so that the left is now on the top of the page, that would overlay into the space that we just looked at. So it gives you a look from above. The black and white doesn't help things, but it does show that they can get the 14 staff into that space. The idea is that that space will really occupy staff only. So those things that can be accomplished between customer and staff at the transaction window will occur. But then, Luella, if you'll go back to the previous page, the two conference spaces that are near security is where staff will meet with clients. So Friend of the Court clients will meet in those two spaces. The idea is to have that potentially be some type of a partition in the middle so that it could be opened up and become a larger conference room if necessary. would have that flexibility. Anything I missed or didn't on that? Didn't explain very well? Okay. You want to go to the next page, Luella? This brings us to the second floor of the building and district court. Currently on the third floor of the building is a magistrate hearing room. If you'll recall, we talked about the issue that the magistrates does not have an official hearing room on that floor. When the building was constructed, a support staff office was there, requiring that the magistrate conduct hearings out of, in this case, currently his office. That's very there's just not enough room in there, particularly as we've added the public defender to the mix. There oftentimes can be upwards of, if I remember, 6 people in that room at a time, and currently it's just a single office that people are trying to occupy to do that. It doesn't function. So we looked at what had been constructed on the third floor. That works very well as a magistrate's hearing room, and are proposing that this space be replicated, or that space be replicated here. The support staff has been moved out as I understand, out into the main offices. And then you'll notice that there are, to the right of that magistrate hearing room, there are 4 kind of chairs, and those will be security windows with a couple of seats to allow attorneys to conference with inmates that are in custody in the hearing rooms. So right now that doesn't exist. Those secure cells that are holding cells for individuals who are have been brought from a facility, from the jail to court, either have to come out or attorneys have to go in, and this will be a space to separate that, sort of like we have downstairs here, following in that concept. Then, Luella, the next is our third floor. On the third floor, we're doing minimal changes. To that one, it's just adding the attorney inmate conferencing space that exists. We don't believe it'll be very complicated. It's going to be basically putting some seats, permanent seats, some windows in that will be secure windows, and then a couple of partitions. I'm sure it will be more than just a weekend project, as I say that, but that's the concept there. And I think that takes us to, did I skip the lower level? That may have been the very first one. I apologize. Yes. And then the lower level of the facility, we will be adding on the south end of the building, immediately under what will become the front of the court space, and this is all currently vacant space, is the MIDC office, is our public defender, along with 2 public restrooms, and then 2 meeting rooms. The public defender space has been designed and thought through well. The 2 meeting rooms, we have some work to do yet on those. We recognize that. We're not sure that those will fall out exactly the way they are, but this will allow some larger conferencing space in that building for staff meetings or the like. Bob Van Putten worked through the schematic design phase with us. I knew that he was looking at retiring. He had downsized. In fact, he had closed his formal office in Grand Rapids, and started working out of his home. He recently lost his right hand Steve Jara had to retire. And in the process of moving from the schematic, working with Hayworth to make sure that we could get the office furnishings design put together and a price that we could afford and make work, Bob has notified us that he's permanently retiring. So that, you'll notice going back to today's business, if you may, that's to approve a contract with Tim Spitzley Architects. When I talked to Bob, he made some recommendations. Tim Spitzley was one of those. Tim has bid on some work that we did, but we didn't actually go with him, not because we had any reason other than we had a continuing relationship with Bob Van Putten. So Tim comes recommended by Bob. He is local. He's out of Lake Odessa. He's done some municipal work. We were really looking for an architect that was a smaller agency to do these types of projects. And we need them parking lot projects, those types of things that we could form a continuing relationship with. We believe Tim Spitzley Architects out of Lake Odessa is that firm, and would like to engage him to complete this project for us, and we'll find out how his work is and go from there. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to open the floor for questions, but if you've got something else, go ahead.
I was just going to acknowledge and maybe a question folks have, the last page of that packet, I believe, was a recommendation or a budget estimate from Bob Van Putten. And has this project somewhere in the $780,000 to $950,000 range. Some of the funding, some of the monies in association with this project will be directly billed back through the Friend of the Court cooperative reimbursement. The furnishings, for example, anything that can be moved will be able to bill. That is, let me rephrase it. Anything that's associated with Friend of the Court and can be moved will be direct billed. And then anything associated with Friend of the Court that is permanent to the building can be indirect billed. I did a more detailed estimate. I think that the project's going to come closer to the $780,000 number, and I think that the direct bill will be, we could be in the $90,000 range, indirect in the $320,000 range. We have almost $130,000 that we've been granted through the public defender grant to apply, leaving about $335,000 to $350,000 to come out of the building rehabilitation fund. And we have the funds budgeted for this.
Questions? Who?
We have any projected timelines on these projects?
As soon as possible. I mean, we will, MIDC would like us to. I don't want to open the door, but it's my understanding there is an opportunity if we go beyond the end of September that we could ask for an extension, but the goal is to spend the public defender money, the MIDC grant monies, before the end of the state's fiscal year, which is September 30th. So it will seem kind of quiet right now. All the schematic drawings will need to be turned into detailed biddable drawings, and that takes a little bit more time than what you think, and it's a time that nothing goes on. So there will probably be a good 60 days of, it'll go quiet while the architects do all their work getting all the documents ready, and then once we have those and get it bid out, things will move rather quickly.
And the good news for that space is it is vacant, and so they don't have to have any demolition or much demolition to remove the stuff or, rehab it. So that lower level will probably go a lot quicker than we think.
We're in the process right now of emptying out the lower level and making it ready for construction. That was the space that, while I said it was vacant, it was the space that all of our used equipment went to. And we're now going to have to figure out what we do. We'd like to figure out a way that we don't store as much of that stuff, that when it is not usable, then we just don't have it sitting stored for a long period of time, not knowing what to do with it.
Right. Any questions, Dan?
Is there any cost at all for buttoning up the other friend of the court building? Is there gonna be costs there?
The cost, once we move, will just be of maintaining it.
Okay.
So I don't anticipate, there are some, depending on what we decide to do with that building, there are some projects that we've identified but have not moved forward with at this point that need to be done. The big one is the entrance ramp on the west side of that building, the main entrance ramp needs some work. But to answer, I think, your specific question, the building's in excellent shape. Friend of the court has taken great care of it. Our building and ground staff have kept up on everything. So, no, it will just be a matter of keeping the heat and keeping it going.
I got one more question. Can we make a suggestion that they use local contractors as much as they can?
We will, absolutely. We will do our best
Okay.
to advertise it locally and use to the degree that we can, yeah.
Anything else?
Couple questions. When you talk about going to open concept, furnishings, hush panels, stuff like that, are there any concerns with privacy issues for friend of the court and/or public defender spaces moving to more open concept furnishings? Has that been contemplated at all?
Luell. Inez can speak to friend of the court. Maybe I'll comment on public defender. The public defender is going to be a bit more traditional.
Okay.
There are 2 staff in that office right now, and that will be a more of a traditional concept. In the friend of the court office, you still will have one office that will be the deputy administrator, Daisy Chernowski's office, so that there is that ability to have private conversations in that. And public defenders would need the same thing. And then we have a couple of specialty spots in that office for public defender, court-appointed attorneys to meet with clients and whatnot as needed. So that space will be a little different, and it'll be a little more traditional
Okay.
than what friend of the court. But if Inez wants to, you want to come on up and talk about. I'm kind of excited about this opportunity. While Inez is coming up, I think that it's going to be a bit of a test. Although Inez has done her homework, and I don't know that I'm aware of anything she goes into without having at least a bit of certainty, if not a high degree of certainty, that it'll work. But the point being, we never would have been able to occupy this space with the staff in what I'm going to call a traditional format.
Okay.
And as we look to that building and how, as we potentially grow and are limited in space, that building's full, what do we do as we do renovations on that building? This will be a solution that we'll look for and look to buy us additional years without having to build more bricks and mortar, if you may.
Okay.
In terms of confidentiality, when we toured the Woodworth facility and looked at the current paneling systems that they have, I was fairly confident in knowing that the amount of discussion that was occurring there was still very private to each individual, not necessarily office, but cubicle, I guess, more or less. So I don't foresee that being an issue with the front of the court staff. A lot of the conversation that takes place right now in our current facility can be heard throughout the office. I don't know if you've toured the front of the court facility, but we have offices at the top level, and pretty much anything you say at the bottom kind of rises to the top, and they can hear those conversations. That's why we've selected to have the staff only be in that area. They have access to all the information anyway, and so the conversations that are taking place are really all that private.
Okay.
And having Daisy's office be more of a traditional space allows her to have employee interactions without having other staff members maybe walk by and listen or whatever the case may be.
You're correct. That probably would be an improvement over the current setup. I've just been in offices that are open concept and they can be loud and word can travel fast. So I didn't know if that had been contemplated. The other question is as we continue to debate the jail and we're putting in new space, public defender space and renovations, are we contemplating video arraignments and technology upgrades that if in fact we get to a new jail, that we can do some things that'll be time savings for both the sheriff's office and for the court staff where we can put them together without having to physically move them?
Or your area?
Can I answer that?
John, if you want to, I have an answer.
I mean, if we're gonna remodel it, we might as well think about the future, right?
Video conferencing in court arraignment was taken into consideration, and MIDC will be set up for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that there was as many rooms down there. And we also took into consideration that right now, hopefully I get these right, but we only are doing adult now with MIDC, indigent defense. But that means family court and juvenile court, the judges still appoint the lawyers. I foresee, as much as the state is changing, that the state will change that too and say the judges shouldn't appoint them either, that MIDC should appoint them. That is why there is some extra room being put into MIDC, so we don't have to remodel again in a year or two.
The right answer. That's what I wanted to hear, so perfect.
And in public defender, there's a specific space dedicated for Polycom.
Okay.
And we will continue to make sure that, and then the hearing rooms have that as well.
Okay,
So the one
perfect.
up, the new hearing room will have that technology as well.
Will they have the security buttons and everything too? over there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, good question, but yes.
And camera monitors.
And timeline, you're hoping to start construction on that this summer then?
Yeah,
And I believe we gotta work from the bottom up, right, Michael?
yeah.
Basement up, because we
we'll
gotta
have
get
to.
MIDC out of where friend of court is gonna be.
Public defender will need to be moved so that they can then use that space to bring friend of the court in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached schematic design for the Berry County Courts and Law building renovations as prepared by Landmark Design Group, and to authorize Timothy A. Spitzley Architects LLC to proceed with the construction, drawing, bidding, and contract administration phases of the project as outlined in the attached proposal dated February 5th, 2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Sorry about that. Item is approved. And while we have Michael in the catbird seat, let's talk about his contract. The question before the committee is to review the performance evaluation for the county administrator and recommend to the Board of Commissioners renewal of the employment agreement between Berry County Board of Commissioners and the Berry County Administrator for a 3-year period commencing on January 1, 2020 and ending on December 31st, 2022.
So move.
Support.
Moved by Parker, support by Jackson. Discussion. So, we have all had our little hand in evaluating Michael's performance. Luella compiled all of the results for us. And he scored very high. If you thought that he wasn't going to, surprise.
Passed again?
He did. I think there was one commissioner that gave him all fives, and I think the rest of us were between 4 and 5, so 4, 4.5, and 5. He didn't get anything lower than a 4, so I know the theory there is, well, you got to give him something to strive to achieve. I don't know how much harder we want him to work. So there are some written comments in there. But what was your average score? 53 or something? I don't recall off the top of my head.
55.7.
55.7, so not bad. There were a couple of changes in his contract. They were primarily dates and dollar amounts, and then there was a big chunk on the first page. That is a redundancy. When his contracts first began, he did not have a job description, and so it were these bulleted items that essentially served as a job description for him. Since then, there has been a job description created. All of those points were included in it. So rather than be redundant in what we're telling him to do, we just included it in his job description. Other than that, I don't think there's any other amendments that we should be concerned with in the contract. The dollar amounts are reflective of the wage study that was done a couple years ago, and subsequent pay raises that we've forced him to take.
Okay.
Is that a fair summation? So, any questions, any comments?
Comments, yes. Just thank you. Yeah. Really nice to go to all these meetings, smart meetings. Oh, yeah, we know Michael. He's really a good guy and knows what he's doing, and it's you've never embarrassed us at all, and that I appreciate, because I've been in situations where that wasn't the case. So,
Have we ever embarrassed him?
Maybe.
We're lucky we have him.
I think that is the question, not do we want to keep Michael, but does he want to keep us? So,
I think my only regret is not having the other two commissioners here to provide their accolades.
Should we get out of here?
I'm just going to find you out of order and
Kathy,
be the first person I gavel out of my commission chambers. So, that being said, I do really appreciate that you've entertained the thought of staying with us. You have been the consistent voice of reason to how many different, at least 10 different boards of commissioners, maybe 12?
Trying to figure, somewhere above 45. I've got it, it's 50. I tried to count it through my head, and
you count me twice.
it's, yeah, there you go. It's
It's like Grover Cleveland, he was
not
president
50
twice.
county commissioners, it's pretty close.
Well, I think mine's probably the only with a pair out of the same address, so we do appreciate you, and I'm really not looking forward to you getting closer to retirement age, because that means I am too. So,
does the contract specify cat herding specialist in there anywhere?
wild commissioner herding
There you go.
specialist, maybe.
Oh, no.
Any other comments? I guess I need to ask you if you intend to sign it.
Oh, sure, absolutely. No,
Okay.
I feel very fortunate. If I could, I'm able to, I started my career here, if I can finish it here. There's certainly a number of things yet to be done. I think we've got a pretty good list on our agenda this year, and the energy's still there, so no, I'm looking forward to it.
Any other comments?
And to the point about the retirement, I've got 2 children in college, so there's anybody that's a parent that has children in college will understand. That's a big motivator.
Yes, it is.
But I just greatly appreciate everybody taking the time to go through it and fill it out. I appreciate the confidence that you have had and continue to have in me. And if there's ever concerns, please feel free to express them either publicly or privately. The key is just making sure that I know what they are.
You probably see more of me than you want to.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I just greatly appreciate you guys in the community, so thank you.
Anything else? All right. Hearing no further discussion, the question before the committee is to review the performance evaluation for the county administrator and recommend to the Board of Commissioners renewal of the employment agreement between Berry County Board of Commissioners and the Berry County Administrator for a 3-year period commencing on January 1st, 2020 and ending on December 31st, 2022. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Item is approved. We are one step closer to having a contract. Let's see. At this time, did you have something?
I guess I would like to make a motion that this board set up an ad hoc committee to look into the COA, how other counties run it, how we might be able to finance different COA. I just suggest we set up an ad hoc committee and look into it to move forward.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Smelker, support by Gibson to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the creation of an ad hoc committee to study the Commission on Aging.
Is that something like we did with the health department?
Pretty close.
Yes, discussion.
Okay.
Should we put that as a cow agenda item for future cows, or are we taking formal action today?
I think the board has to create or approve the creation of an ad hoc committee. So as a cow agenda, we would recommend to the board the creation of it, and we could vote on it next week.
Sorry, holding off 2 weeks is not life or death, but
No, I think it, based on some of the input that we've had in the last couple of weeks, I think it's important for us to do more homework to make sure that we're not missing something and know exactly what kind of gem we have compared to other communities. Last year we looked at the health department. We kind of went in with both eyes open, not having any preconceived ideas on where we fit with services, where we fit with budget. We knew we were high on budget compared to some communities just based on some initial research. But we would I think having a ad hoc committee study this is a good idea so that we all have the same information and that we're not running under any type of misconceptions about the services that we have versus other communities. I think it'll help us in the long run help with the planning of the next group of seniors that'll use that facility, because that's really what we're looking for is our future. Any other discussion?
Can I elaborate on that?
Yes, please.
I think that's a great idea. I'm glad somebody had that brain thought to do it. It's a good model to take it along the same lines as the health department. I have not been intimately connected with the Commission on Aging, but would like to get some more information on that, because with the jail, it's a mandated service, and we know what we have and what we have to do. It's a matter of how big and where. It's fairly cut and dry with what that needs to be. But as we've started talking about the Commission on Aging, I've got so much input from different directions and different ideas and different things. And I really think that if we're going to take a look at the next 10 or 20 years for our seniors and what we're going to put in this, because this building isn't going to be a short-term thing. This is a 30, 40, as we've talked about senior lifestyles are changing, they're more technology advanced. I just think there's an opportunity for us to look and really pull a bunch of information from the COA, from the community, look at other counties, look at other, and maybe even outside the state. I'm not suggesting that we fly to Hawaii and look at theirs, although I won't suggest that, but, you know,
I think our travel budget might be hit.
a little thin, but why don't we look at models that are effective or that are working in other areas to see if there are things that we can do for our seniors, because they always talk about loneliness, isolation, but how do we bring people together? The current COA seems to be very Hastings-centric. Is there an opportunity to create outreach or coordination in Southern Berry County and Nashville and Delton and some of the areas that we can include more people? So I love our COA, and some of the feedback we've got has been you're paying more attention to the criminals than to the seniors, and that's not the case at all. I mean, this board, in my opinion, has two priorities, and that is the COA and the jail and solving those two problems, and we are in no way taking the COA off of that top line and moving it down. It's just the jail has a little bit more clear-cut path. The COA, I think, requires a little more thought, may take a little more time, and I don't want to screw it up. I want to be sure we do it right.
I agree.
I mean, is that, I don't know if I'm saying the right thought there, but that's what I'm thinking. That, and I'd like the input of the other board members as well. I just think that if we get some focused attention and some input from an ad hoc, and maybe even add in a few people on that board, that I think we could do some really good things going forward, so.
I think it's a good idea.
Dan?
Do it right, do it the first time.
Yeah,
do
I
it
think
right.
what you last said, we need to pull in some people, like we went to the health departments, other health departments, and talk to those people. I think that we need to bring in some people that are really savvy in this area. And so I don't think it should be just a committee of the commissioners.
I think if we create an ad hoc committee, though, of commissioners, we can always include other people in some of our fact-finding. I think by invitation, the last one that we did, we talked to a lot of people. And it wasn't necessarily closed meetings, because we went all over the place, and we talked to a lot of people. So I think as we identify like-sized counties or just neighboring counties, just to see what other areas offer, I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss with lots of different people versus just, I mean, because we dragged ourselves all over the place talking to people, so.
The only thing I'm thinking is that someone that would be more permanent, that would have a better scope on when you hear something from somebody else, like we did with the health department people. It was always nice to be able, we didn't find out till maybe we talked to the next person why that wasn't as good an idea as that what we thought, because we weren't savvy enough to understand all the complications of it. Whereas somebody that is working in that area or in that field would have that opportunity to you know, tip us off on some of that type of stuff. And not to say that we would agree with it, but the fact that we would be gathering the right information then.
Right. Well, we will have a week to think about who might be that fourth or fifth person to add to our thing, and I mean, we don't have to name everybody today for that. Next week will be the day for that. So.
And I think it would be within the scope of an ad hoc committee, if they wanted to create a citizen committee or more people, to have a focus group within that for input, that we could do that as well, so.
Yep.
Just like with our health department ad hoc committee, you know, we picked out the three like-sized counties, and we went to them. But Dan and I went to Kalamazoo, which is definitely not like-sized, but we come out of there with different ideas.
Yeah, we did.
So we don't want to limit ourselves, talk to everybody.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, the demographics say that we're gonna have our senior population is gonna be one of the larger segments. So I think it's worth our time, effort, and energy to study this, look at this, gather input, and see if we can gather some consensus, because I don't think this board has consensus on where to go right now.
Right.
So I think that would be helpful for all of us if we could do that.
Hey, you know, on some of the communication I've received, not going to name any names, but I've been told that we were going to do away with the COA entirely. No, that is not in my thoughts. So,
So, the question before the committee, I would like to ask if someone would like to do like a reporting deadline or just leave it open-ended until we are satisfied that we're complete. I mean, last time we had a deadline, and it was pretty difficult based on the end of the year stuff. And so when we started over in January, we crammed a whole bunch of stuff in really short order to try to finish our report. Do we want to put a,
Michael, do ad hoc committees have an expiration date?
just until their job is complete? So if it
yeah,
takes
but I don't want to
them-
drag it out too long.
I don't
either.
want to either. So, and that's like if we appointed it at the end of our term, say it was August, and we appointed an ad hoc committee, and they were not done until February after we were elected and there was a whole new board, they would still be commissioned as an ad hoc committee until their work is done, I think
Okay.
is how it works. I think according to, I'd tell you Hoyle, but he plays cards.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir. We're in discussion, so.
By starting an ad hoc committee, and if you put a time limit on it, and it's past August, does that mean you're not gonna have anything on there to vote on at all? Or what are your thoughts on that, John?
On,
Yeah,
On
are we
just the
saying
COA?
then we're just not gonna vote, we're not gonna have a vote for the Commission on Aging then? Is that what we're saying? Or
this board would
for
have to
this
decide
August?
that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
No, I
that's,
know that, but
Yes.
if you have that and you've got a certain time limit that you're gonna have to do it in to get to that point, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's what it
wondering.
says when
They're gonna wanna know that too.
what's the deadline for August?
April,
I don't know for sure.
21st.
that file, is it
April.
21st?
April 24th,
Ballot language?
Yes,
April 24th?
Candidate language is April 21. I think ballot language is a little bit beyond that.
Oh, okay.
am I thinking May 5th,
I
maybe?
think you may.
So, according to Robert's Rules of Order, I'm not sure what edition this is, but it says, special ad hoc or select committees which are created for a particular purpose and go out of existence when that purpose is completed. So whenever your report would be done, the ad hoc committee would dissolve.
And as far as ballot language, you know, we'd have that deadline, but what happens if we come up with something that don't need ballot language?
Right.
And that would be.
I may be grasping, but I'm still hoping.
Yeah, well, I agree. I just wanted to make sure we were aware of that situation though.
I don't know, I think you could start at 6 months. That may be extended, but by the same token, I don't want to try to
Yeah,
put it in something so tight that we quit looking.
I agree with Heather. We got to pushing in January on the health department.
Yeah, we crammed a lot of visits in a really short period of time. Of course, my schedule.
We didn't
is
forget
not-
what the last visit said that way.
My schedule got a little tight this year, and extra visits would have to happen on snow days or days off of school, if I were involved. So, I think it's important enough for us to look into to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we are all well-educated, in this decision-making process, because if we talk about a dozen different things, a dozen different places, and the seven of us don't agree, we make crazy decisions. So I think it would be an opportunity for us to be all on the same page when we finally make a decision. Yes, ma'am.
Ballot wording for the August election is due by 4 o'clock on May 12th,
Did everybody hear that? Ballot language for the August election is due by 4 p.m. on May 12th. Ballot language for a November election would be due 4 p.m. on August 11th. So, any other discussion? The issue before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the creation of an ad hoc committee to study the COA services compared to other counties and to report back to the Board of Commission. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Kathy Gramsey, I live in the city of Hastings. I want to thank you for your interest in the COA. And I'd like to let you know that there's a COA board meeting this afternoon at 2 p.m. if any of you would care to attend. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comment? How did I know?
Good morning. Sharon Zabrowski, COA board member. Thank you very much for the ad hoc committee to look into what other COAs are doing compared to what our COA is doing. I would hope that you would include a or more than one board member in your ad hoc committee, remembering that you chose people to be on the COA board to do a job. We are very close to what is going on with our COA. We are also aware of things that happen with other COAs. So I think that the thing that we can bring to your ad hoc committee is that knowledge of our COA. You know, and we can look at, wow, that's a great idea and that would work very well here. That's a great idea. We're already doing it. Or we are a different community, but we might be able to tweak that idea. So I think there's a lot of experience from present board members that could be very helpful in making these decisions as to where the COA goes. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, is there any other business to come before the committee?
Yes, there's a meeting tonight at Thornapple Kellogg Schools for jail and COA forum. We'd like to have their ideas, and even though the schools are closed, it will be open, and it's at the middle school in room 1616.
Do you know, Dan, is that the cafeteria or is that the gymnasium or is that just a big?
No, it's a board meeting, boardroom that they
Boardroom.
use, and it's, if you go in the front entrance, it'll be way to the back. Just
Okay.
keep going straight back.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else to come before this committee? There being no further business and without objection, the committee is adjourned.
We go to the 13th of John.